All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. This session is entitled Best Practices for Okta Developers. My name is Jennifer Galvin. I am a Senior Customer Identity and Access Management Lead for Partners for Okta. And just full disclosure for everyone, this is our safe harbor statement, and this presentation may contain forward-looking statements. So the reason that we decided we wanted to do this particular talk is to give you guys some best practices and tools for how you might use identity as a key critical service in your applications, and then also how you should expect to interact with identity and have seamless access in the systems that help you enable to do your job every day writing applications. So to give you guys an example, every application that you write, even today, is going to be personalized for the user who's using it. And the most typical way we do that is by having the user log in some fashion. And especially if they're giving you any of their personal data, you have to secure that data or at least hide it from the eyes of other users. And so everything you're writing today, whether it be a web or a mobile app or even an API, it's going to need to have authentication built in. And when we look at the requirements for some of these applications, these are real requirements I've given. As an example, this is something I hear all the time. They'll be given an assignment to write an application, and the requirements will be, must connect to an existing set of users that I already have, because the application is new, but the user base is not. So someone will say, well, the user base, it could be in AD or LDAP, it could be stored locally, it could be OpenID Connect, it could be SAML. And this unknown, or this ability to try to flex and meet these requirements for every application, is going to result in a lot of work for you, because the code that you write to connect a SAML application, connect it via SAML strategy, is different than the code you would write for an OpenID Connect strategy. And connection and session management for AD and LDAP is also going to be different as well. So it's more and more code. So what we want to do is we want to connect our applications here on the right-hand side, and we want to be able to allow them to share a single sign-on at a single source, and we want to be able to connect them to all kinds of systems upstream, no matter what they are. So the solution is just to level up your knowledge on how to write applications with modern authentication and just connect them to Okta. Okta actually connects to everything. This is a great diagram of all the things that Okta might connect to. Your existing ADs, LDAPs, on-prem systems, existing identity providers, as well as all the other applications that were written in the past 20 or 30 years. So this is very simple. In 2 minutes, you can get your own developer tenant at developer.okta.com and just level up on those functions of application of authentication. So let's look at what every application is doing, kind of like the core 4 basics of authentication. If you look at one of our largest customers, Albertsons, they have about 8 different stores, and they have lots of different types of applications. One of the most basic ones that people interact with is a loyalty program where you get a card and you log in on the app with your phone. And then you can also get other premium services like grocery delivery and prescription pickup. And then if you're an employee of Albertsons, you will have to log in and interface with your time card and have access to secure systems. And if you're a developer hearing those things for each of these applications, that's a different set of requirements for authentication for every single one. For a loyalty program, you just want to collect a little bit of information with social media. And for grocery delivery, you're going to have to store personal sensitive information like where someone lives, and even more so with pharmacy. And for employees, that's a whole different ballgame. So the way that we solve this problem is we connect all these applications. We design these applications very simply, and they connect to Okta. And they connect to Okta not only for user storage and also to connect to the upstream systems, but they all share a session. It's possible for you to participate in the loyalty program log into each application with the same credentials, whether it be branded Wegmans or Safeway, and continue to use any of these applications, even if you are, even if you only started with the loyalty program. And the reason this works is because Okta is really performing all of these functions out of the box. We're storing the user profiles for profile management for all these users. And also every application kind of looks like this. If you look at the login for Safeway, for example, every application looks like this. At the end of the day, there's these core 4 functions that you have to use, and you should expect to have an identity provider provide them for you. You should not have to write them at all. And they are things like authentication. If you look at this window, we have to authenticate users, whether it be with username and password, or with magic link, or with by their device or their phone number. We have to do it. And sometimes we do it with accounts that we create for them and they sign up for, or sometimes we do it with other account sources like social media or existing systems. And of course, if they're not as hip-hop happening to have a Twitter or a Facebook or a Google, then they're going to have to register for an account. And if they forgot their password, or if they had an account 5 years ago and they need to reclaim it, it's tied to their phone number, they're going to have to do all this account maintenance without contacting a human. And if you were a developer, you have to write all these things, these core functions. You have to give them the ability to not only log in, but maintain their user profile. And remember, when you create a new user in, for example, this Safeway application, you're not just creating it for Safeway. I could shop at Wegmans too. So whenever you onboard a new user, it's not just for your one app. It's literally for every other application that might not be used to authenticate that user for that organization. So we need to start thinking about that. And then finally, we have a lot of legislative requirements, or some requirements that come down about security in the business. And so we have to plug those in to our application too. And these are all the things that you would have to write on your own in your application. And the solution is really just to let Okta do that for you and write your application to connect to Okta. Now, I'm going to show you how that application connects in the demo. But to encourage you, I want to tell you that it's free to start. The developer tenants you can get as many of them as you like, 1 per project. It doesn't matter, right? You can sign up for as many as you need to get your work done. The smallest tier is free, and it will scale up. If you need to go ahead and scale that up because you've created one for your first application and now it's doing very well and you're making some money, you can go ahead and just sign up for the paid plan. And that's really important because there's no code changes at all. The same code that you write to connect to Okta and your developer tenant at 10 users or at 100 users is the exact same code that you're gonna use to connect to Okta, whether or not you have 1 million or 5 million or 22 million, like some of our largest customers at Okta. It might be small to you, but if you have like 100 users, you are the 69 millionth and 100th authentication to Okta's platform of that day. You are the 650 millionth and 100th API call of that day. And it's that kind of scale that gives you the trust that you should be looking for to use that service. Remember, guys, we want to think DNS. You don't rewrite DNS. It's a trusted service, highly scalable. It's a piece of critical infrastructure for our application, and so is identity. Now, we have the tools in our belt. We'll see that in the demo, but more importantly, we want to think about the systems and the teams that we work on when we join an organization, and how do we get access to all the systems that help us write this code and test it and promote our build. So first of all, Agile pipelines are designed for speed, and I want to talk about your continuous integration pipeline. So they're designed for speed. And in the access world, what that really means is speed to access. How quickly can you get access to the systems that you need to interface to create your code and test it and run it? Security in this case is also an afterthought. If you think about it, a lot of devs are very smart. And if there's a problem connecting to any of these systems, then they just want to fix the problem. And this is the place where we see a lot of DIY tertiary infrastructure that is supporting these systems. And that's a lot of overhead. It's also not a core part of their job. And what we want to do is we want to actually solve the problem of access very quickly. We want to give them security where they didn't have much. And we want to do things like we want to do the important things, like keep them out of prison, or worse, out of the news and off Twitter if they screw up, right? So you want to move fast and break things, but we don't want to land on someone's feed, which is important. Because when you solve identity problems yourself, you are really opening yourself up for a problem here. And this is a great example of one of them. In this case, in September of 2019, it was found that credentials, encryption keys, and code for Scotiabank's applications and infrastructure were found on public GitHub repositories. Now, I don't know why a dev would choose to do this. You would think that in a big organization, there would be a lot of security and high authentication around GitHub. You would think that you would be granted access to a private repo, and it just seems like that didn't happen. And in organizations, it's really not your job when you start your job to like go and Slack your coworker and be like, hey, what's the repo? Add my account to Jira. Like, it's not your job to really do that. What we want is we want to have identity be a critical infrastructure for the DevOps pipeline, so that 9:01 a.m. of your job, you are ready to go. You have access to everything you need at the right level immediately. Because 5:01 p.m. of the last day, you should be completely out. A lot of these systems are cloud systems, which means that unless we secure them, they are accessible by everyone. And they're also the number one place for risk for data exfiltration. So a lot of these breaches that are leaking sensitive data, not many of them are coming from highly protected production systems. A lot of them are coming from QA environments, because it's really common to clone production data, use it in QA, and there's not a lot of security around the build, promotion, and testing pipeline. And so what they'll do is they'll stand up these data sets or this infrastructure with no security. They think it's only, it's okay because it's only there for, a little bit of time, when that's all it really does, really takes for someone to probe some system on the internet and try a default credential and log in and dump the data. So this is really what's happening for a lot of these data dumps, is they're coming out of QA or systems that are thought of as an afterthought. So we want to go ahead and just shut that down. We want to go ahead and create a continuous infrastructure for identity, not just at the web and API and app layer, but also in the whole layer cake, like the databases and the operating systems that support that infrastructure. And so let's go ahead and look at that pipeline, because a lot of technology backs this pipeline. And the question really is if you were to ask the question, 9:01 a.m. of your first day on the job, how do you get access to this stuff? Well, first, let's look at what runs this pipeline. So all pipelines are run by an orchestrator, which could be CloudBees or Jenkins is the big one, Circle CI, and maybe a few others. And if you've worked anywhere, usually it's different every time, so you have to figure out how to use it, and everyone logs into it. And now let's look at each step in the DevOps pipeline. So there's usually a different technology that assists each individual step. And so if you need access to these things, you need to have an account and you need to log into it. And how do you do that? Well, this is where we see a lot of tertiary infrastructure and DIY solutions. We'll see things like homegrown ADs and LDAPs and directory servers, .devs, .locals, Amazon directory services. You'll see that being stood up to connect to each and every one of these services. And we'll also see people setting and sharing credentials just regular users and passwords for batch jobs and SSH key managers and secrets, and they're passing them around Slack channels and whatnot. And it's not really a good experience. It's not really secure. And also it just wastes time. It's not very agile. And so what we want to do is we want to take the lazy way out. Okta is a cloud service and connects to each and every one of these applications automatically and out of the box. And so you could simply connect all of these applications to Okta, and you would be ready to go. And like a boss, you could connect all of these to your HR systems or your recruiting systems or the systems that know when you are employed. And so your user could be pre-staged in all of these systems, or you could be ready to go. And then 5:01 p.m., those systems are the ones that know whether or not you are still working and what your role is and what project you're on. So these systems are the ones that will control that access, and Okta will go ahead and provision and decommission access to all those systems based on the information in that store. And what that results in is 9:01 a.m. of my first day on the job, I have access to all of the applications that I need to do my job. And when I log in, this is what it's going to look like. Now, I don't have to go ahead and type a password or Slack my coworker. I have secure access to all of these applications. And this is really important to note because not only do you need access, but these accounts have to be created downstream in each and every one of these particular applications that you use. So whether or not you're adding the user directly to Okta using the cloud interface, or whether or not you connect Okta upstream to maybe the Active Directory LDAP you built earlier, or your HR systems, Okta is going to go ahead and pick up those new users and automatically provision them. And we have the best integrations for most of the technologies that back the DevOps pipeline. And I'm going to talk about a few of these examples. So the first example is our partnership with Atlassian. This is important because Okta is included directly in the product suite. Atlassian makes a lot of products, and you either can consume them or not. But if you're using all these products, whether or not you're managing your Kanban in Trello or you are opening tickets in Jira, you have to log into these systems. And so this can become very complicated very quickly. So they're offering Okta as Atlassian access for single sign-on across all of these particular applications. And that's really solving the problem of access. We're cutting out one area where we have to create and update accounts. Another place where we have the best integration here is Amazon. We have a pre-built integration in Amazon for multiple accounts to automatically map user SAML roles to the IAM roles in every account automatically. The reason it's so important is because it's a common pattern to have one master account for billing in Amazon, and then you have a logging account, and then every project has its own account. And what that results in is organizations having 50 or 100 different accounts, and that's not manageable. So when I join my first day, I have to figure out how to get access to the resources that I need. And what do I have to do? I'm not going to Slack my coworker and say which account is mapped to this project. I'm just going to go ahead and log in. And Okta will map all that automatically. So if I change roles, if I'm assigned a new project, automatically that account is going to show up in my selection when I click on Amazon, and I'm going to get access to those resources. And finally, we need to think about the layer cake. So it's not just web and apps and APIs, but it's also access to the databases and the underlying infrastructure that we need access to. If we think about identity as one continuous layer of plumbing that's connecting and onboarding and offboarding users in the DevOps infrastructure, then we have to consider how they get access to these systems. And we really should do it in line with zero trust. You know, what the principles of zero trust say that we should not be granting any kind of static keys or anything that could be stolen. We should be granting access ephemerally at a single source so that it can be revoked with an ephemeral token. So it can be revoked. And that's exactly what we are doing with Okta's Advanced Server Access. If you add Okta's Advanced Server Access, you are able to log in all the way down to the infrastructure as you on your first day. And the reason is because we're not promoting static keys. When I start an organization, I need to connect to an existing set of servers. I don't have to get the secrets. I don't have to check them out. I don't have to get the static keys. It's not my job to rotate them. All I do is just connect. Either I have access or I don't. And it's that simple. And this is going to get us in line with zero trust, and it's going to make me more agile. I'm going to be able to get access right away. And Okta is going to be the only solution to offer it end-to-end from web all the way down to the infrastructure. Now remember, it's not just for applications too. It's also for your batch users. So if you're running batch jobs in Jenkins and everything else, we need to be able to also grant access via ephemeral token. And what we need to do is we need to do this with our most common method, which is our configuration management. You should be able to take the infrastructure and the instructions for connecting advanced server access, and you should be able to place them in the existing systems that manage your configuration management. And it's very easy to do. I just put these up as an example. This is literally all it takes to get a Linux server on the left-hand side to enroll with Okta Advanced Server Access for access. This is all it takes for the Windows build to do it. So right away, if you add this to all of your recipes in Terraform or Chef or Puppet or Ansible, what that's going to do is it's going to connect all that dynamic infrastructure to Okta immediately after it's provisioned. And then they can use their common tools to access it. We're just going to connect using the SFT client, which does regular SSH, and we're going to connect using SFT to get RDP access to Windows. Very, very simple to do. And Okta Advanced Server Access will also manage the sudoers entitlements on Linux directly to the groups and roles. So you can actually manage permissions now. Maybe in dev, you allow sudoers and you allow certain commands, but in production, you restrict all those commands. And you have the power now. And let's also not forget about those batch processes as well. We want to be able to connect them without static keys so that we can eliminate the need for sharing passwords and sharing secrets. So let's go ahead and see this in action. I have a little demo here. And in this demo, I'm going to play the role of a new developer. It's 9:01 a.m. of my first day. All right, so it's my first day, and in this role, I'm a Node.js developer, really excited for my job. And on my first day, I have an email from my boss already, and she's assigned me a new project to take an existing application that's written in Node.js. It's a web application, and it's based on Scotch.io's Easy Node Auth example, which is great. And it's already modified to use Passport Okta OAuth to authenticate to Okta, which is the module I would recommend to use with Node. And what she says is, it's already done. You just have to get a developer tenant for free at developer.okta.com. And she wants me to create an OpenID app per the instructions online and get it running. Now, when I get an assignment like this, the first thing I do is I go and I look at the code to see if I can get it running, to see what it looks like. And I've already clicked on this link, and it is protected by authentication, which means that I should probably skip to the third paragraph and look for the welcome email. So this is what I did this morning. I don't even have a laptop. It's my first day. I'm using my Windows laptop that I have at home, and I logged in to my tenant, and I set up my account, and I set my password, and I set Okta Verify. So she says now I should have access to everything I need to do this work. And she says I'm already assigned to the correct account in Amazon. So let's go see if that's actually true. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to the Okta tenant. And I've already done this morning. So using the same machine, I'm going to go ahead and log in. And you'll notice I typed my username, but I didn't at all type a password. I'm only being asked to confirm my factor. And that's because this is a pretty safe login. I'm from the same IP address and from the same machine. So we don't have to keep prompting for the password, which is good because I don't remember my password anyway. Okay, so she says I have access. I need to get access to that repo because I don't know what I'm getting into. So I should have single sign-on to all these applications. Let's go visit GitHub and see if I can take a look at this particular code. All right, and I have access. Excellent. So here's the repository, and I've never seen this before, so I'm just going to go ahead and scroll on down, and we're going to just go ahead and read the instructions in the README. And let's see what we're getting into. So as stated, based on the Scotch.io example, which I'm somewhat familiar with, it uses Techstars Passport Okta OAuth module to authenticate using OpenID Connect. And so we could just get a free developer tenant. I've already got one of those. Already good. And I've noticed, runs on Linux only, Mac OS or Linux. This is a problem for me because I don't have my laptop yet. And I'm using this Windows desktop. So, okay, so I'm Windows and I need a development environment. And it's given me a CloudFormation template located here. Okay, so I guess what that means is I'm going to take this CloudFormation template and I'm going to go plug this into Amazon. And hopefully it will give me something to run this on. Okay, this is good. Still doing well. You know, maybe 30 minutes into my job. Already, we're not hitting any roadblocks. Let's go ahead and see if I can get access to my Amazon account so I can provision this. All right. Where's there it is. There's Amazon right there. I'm going to click on that. Now, this company has about 50 to 100 different accounts. It's one per project, but you'll notice it just lets me write in. And that's because I only have access to one account. So if I had access to, like, more typically 4 or 5, it would actually ask me which one and which role, but because it's only one, it's already mapped my user role to the IAM role, and it lets me write in. That's me at the top right there. So we're ready to go. I need to provision that CloudFormation template. So we're going to go ahead and look for that service. And we're going to go ahead and paste in that link from S3. All right. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to use that link. Oh, so far, so good. It's valid. And it's asking me for some information, my stack name, I don't know, my stuff. It's asking for host name. I don't know, GenDev1. It's my first day. I don't know anything. A T2 micro sounds good. And then these are the VPCs that were already tied to this account. Customer demo sounds reasonable. We'll select that and we'll hit next. All right, now I'm going to check the options, and because I don't know what I'm doing, I think these are okay, and I'm going to click next. And what's interesting to me is you'll notice that I didn't give it much information, and I'm getting a little worried now as I provision my stack because I don't know how to connect to this resource, right? I mean, I didn't type a username, I didn't type a password, I didn't select a key, I don't have any keys. So this is really interesting, and being new here, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to look like an idiot on Slack. So I'm going to hope that the person who wrote this CloudFormation template is going to give me some instructions on how to connect to it. And typically that's output in the outputs there. So we're going to refresh this page until it's done, and then I'm going to check the outputs of the CloudFormation template and hope that someone has given me a clue on how to connect. All right, so it's done, and I have some resources. There's my EC2 instance, and I'm going to look at those outputs, and oh, look, someone did give me access, access information, connection instructions, and it says to type SFT SSH GenDev1 to connect. Now it's saying SFT because in my onboarding instructions this morning, it instructed me to download the Okta Advanced Server Access client so I could get access because I'm not using a corporate laptop. So I did that, and I enrolled it, so it authenticated using the browser to Okta. So now I'm authenticated. So what these servers do at this organization is they self-enroll themselves into Advanced Server Access when they are built. So if I use the list servers command for SFT, I should be able to see all the servers that I can access. And this organization has a lot of them, but I'm only allowed to access one, and this is the one that I provisioned. So we're going to try to log in, and it should just work. And it does. And it's because I'm already authenticated to Okta. It issues me an ephemeral credential to get into this particular server. Now, and I'm me too, which is good, Jennifer Galvin. That's interesting. So what I normally do is I would normally sudo su- and try to install all the packages I need, but I'm hoping that all the packages are on here. So because it's a CloudFormation template. So also, you can restrict the use of sudoers using an Okta Advanced Server Access. So while I do have it here, it is granted on these servers on this project, I don't necessarily need it for all of them. So I'm going to try to see how far I get. Let's go ahead and clone this repository and see if Node and all the packages are on here. And it clones. That's good. Git is on here. That's a good sign. Let's go ahead and now read the instructions to see how what's next. All right, so we clone the repo. Now let's install those packages. NPM's on there, also a good sign. Probably means Node's on there. Excellent. Perfect. So now we're going to figure out how to configure this application to connect to Okta. And the next step is to configure it to use my dev tenant to use OpenID Connect. And I've already got one. It has no applications. So we're going to add an application, and we're just going to take all the defaults for now. It's going to be a web application. This is a Node.js app. And we're going to just take the defaults. It's going to be assigned to everyone in this particular tenant. And I'm going to come back and modify the callback URLs because, as you'll see, it's not localhost. Excellent. So it's going to allow anyone, any user that's added to this particular dev tenant to authenticate. And I already have one, it's me, but I can add new test users at any time with the web browser to go ahead and test, different things and I can change the policy to do different things. Now I'm going to leave these on the screen. I'm going to need the client ID and secret to configure this application. So let's see where I would do that. I'm going to guess that's in config, and I'm going to guess that's in auth. And here we go. And as you can see, this is the reason why Boss Girl wants to connect this to Okta. Each and every time we add a new type of authentication service to this application, we have to modify the code and add a new kind of service for Passport. And we don't have to do that with Okta. We can just go ahead and add each new one in Okta, and we don't have to modify the code at all. So I'm going to get this running, and then I'm going to consolidate and cut down and delete the other services because they're not necessary. So we're going to go ahead and add the developer tenant here. And we're going to take those two values and we're going to paste them in for client ID and secret. And we'll copy that. Excellent. Now the last step is the callback URL is not localhost because we provisioned this test tenant in Amazon. It's going to be the public IP that the CloudFormation template returned to me. So we're going to go ahead and paste that in there. And that should be the extent of the code changes. It's just configuration. So now I need to go ahead and modify the application in Okta. We need to go ahead and replace the appropriate callback URLs in our web app. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it here. And I'm going to use this URL, and I'm going to modify the application, and I'm going to construct the other URLs from this one. Now, again, the IP is not localhost. It's going to be that public IP. And we'll just copy them here. And we're going to paste this in as the last step. Excellent. Perfect. Now, the final step is to take this URL, because this IP address and this URL has never been seen before by Okta, and we're going to add it to trusted origins. And this is for security, so that we do not accept redirects from just anyone. We only accept redirects from trusted sources. All right, so let's go ahead and check in on our repo. And we've added these, we've whitelisted these. So now we just need to launch the app. So if we did everything correctly, it should work. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Well, it starts. It's a good sign. Let's see if we can access the web page. Excellent. And once again, you can see on this page, we have 5 buttons. It's so many different types of authentication, when in reality, we just need Okta. So we can really kind of consolidate these. If we got everything working, we can start to consolidate these so that Okta is really doing all of it. Now here we go. It's the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and click on Okta. Remember, I've already logged in on my dev tenant, so it should just log in as me. And we'll go ahead and show you that. And there we go. So blink and you'll miss it. The redirects went all the way back to the dev tenant and came back with my new token. And you can see that it's from the dev tenant, not only because I have an email of me at jennifer-galvin.com, but I'm also going to go ahead and copy this token and decode it for you so you can see the contents. And there you go. The issuer is that developer tenant. And you'll notice I just passed the default scopes, but it's my me at Jennifer-Galvin user, which was the only user I had. Excellent. So now I'm in a great spot. I have a working piece of code, which I can now modify, and I have access to everything I need. And I don't even have a laptop yet. And if you've been keeping track of time, it's been 30 minutes. And I'm completely onboarded, and I have access to every single system I need to do my job. I mean, how many of you, has this matched any onboarding process for any of you? Has it ever been this quick or this easy for you? If it's not, these are the questions you need to ask yourself. How are you getting access to all of your systems? And then also, how are you getting access to the underlying infrastructure? 9:01 a.m. of my first day, and I'm already productive. And I haven't typed a single password in this entire demo, not once. So 5:01 p.m. of my last day, I don't walk out the door with any SSH keys, any passwords, and all of my applications will authenticate to a single source. Excellent. Now, what's your call to action, guys? When you leave the session, this is what I want you to remember. I want you guys to all level up on how to outsource those core 4 identity functions of your applications to Okta as an identity service for your framework. So I showed you Node.js in this example. Whether or not you are a mobile coder or a web coder or any other language, go ahead and learn how to connect your applications using OpenID Connect. It's an open protocol. You can connect it to anything besides Okta. It's not going to hold you up. The second thing is you can get as many Okta developer tenants as you need, not just one. So if you have one project, you can create the test users for that project. And if you have another one, you just create another one. It's okay. They're free. The third thing I want you guys to do is to review how you access the technology that backs your CI/CD pipeline. If you are slacking your coworkers, sharing secrets, passing around keys, rotating keys, this is a weak point, and it's just not agile. It's not as quick as what I showed you. So there's room for improvement there, and that improvement can be measured by speed. And to help you, we have just announced Okta for emergency remote work in this current time, and it allows SSO and MFA free for 6 months for up to 5 applications, which might cover most of your DevOps pipeline today. I think I accessed like 4 different systems total with my demo tenant. So that could be all of it. So that's really important. And if we look at Okta for emergency remote work, it's got great coverage, and in 6 months, you can evaluate whether or not you still need it. Once again, if you level up to the paid plan, no changes on your part. It's just turned on and you're ready to go. I hope you guys are all staying safe and you're with your families at this time. And thank you so much for attending my presentation remotely. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Octane.